Hey folks, welcome to a very exciting Alt Schwift X live discussion of Raised by Wolves Season 2. Raised by Wolves is a weird show about robots and religion and an alien world and milk. There's a lot of milk. There's a lot of weird shit going on, and the new season has started. And the first two episodes have come out of the new season, and it's been cool. It's been different. It's been fresh. We're in a new set. We've got new characters. We've got new stuff going on. And I'm hoping that we also get back to exploring some of the mysteries that were raised in season 1. Because that's the trouble with these, like, mystery shows, you know? Like, the problem with Lost was that Lost introduced all these interesting mysteries in each season, but they never really answered or addressed or explored the implications of the mysteries and the things that they introduced in the first place, you know? Like, instead of giving us any kind of answers or resolution, they just laid more and more mysteries on top of each other. And, you know, I'm always a little suspicious that this show might do something similar. There's only 8 episodes in this season, so we're already a quarter of the way through season 2. With 2 episodes being out. I'm pretty sure that's how fractions work. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. In terms of like the story and the characters and the themes, I think all of that is fine and dandy and cool. And we'll talk about that today. So if you'll recall, last season, the robot Mother, raised a bunch of children on this planet, Kepler 22b. A giant spaceship full of religious Mithraic people arrived, and Mother killed them all. And like the last survivors of the Mithraics were Marcus. And he heard the voice of God on this planet, and he believes that his destiny is to lead everyone to worshipping Soul, and he's got some weird veins on his face because he swallowed some robot eyeballs full of like magic plutonium. So he was all messed up, but now he's being a little bit more strategic in these 2 episodes. He's trying to build this new family of people who are on his side, and we're seeing a sort of different side to him, which is interesting. But let's go through it scene by scene. So Mother and Father at the end of last season jumped out of a spaceship and landed in this new area, the tropical zone, which is more habitable and more friendly than where they were living last time. And this new atheist arc has arrived. The atheists and the Mithraic religious people on Earth were the 2 sides of this war that like destroyed the planet, and the Mithraic were winning the war. But the war basically destroyed Earth, and that's why everyone has flown to this new planet, Kepler 22b. And the atheists hijacked an ark, and that's why a whole bunch of atheists have escaped the planet, and it's now the atheists who are now the dominant power on Kepler 22b. And you know, one of the things that we learned in season 1 was that the Mithraics, the religious people, were kind of dicks. They were not very nice. Like, the second most powerful Mithraic guy, Otho, he was a rapist, and he was horrible, and he justified his actions with religion. And, like, the Ambrose guy was not very nice either. So, like, the Mithraics were not, like, great. And we saw, you know, the Mithraics dehumanize the atheists. They say that, oh, atheists don't have souls, so it's fine to kill atheists. So season 1 was very, like, religion bad. And now, fairly predictably, in season 2, they're going, and by the way, surprise, surprise, atheists are also dickheads. So we see, like, that the atheists are these gun-wielding soldiers lording over these prisoners. They have these Mithraic prisoners, the survivors of season 1, and other prisoners who they're, like, using as, like, forced labor, and they've got these bomb packs on their bodies that they will detonate if their prisoners get out of line. And, you know, that's consistent with, you know, we saw in season 1 that the atheists used, like, child soldiers and child suicide bombers. So, you know, don't worry about, you know, the show, like, ragging on religious people and saying that irreligious people are great. They're saying that everyone's dicks, really. The show's creator has talked about, you know, wanting to make a morally ambiguous story. And like many stories, that means showing both sides are kind of assholes. So yeah, the atheists are kind of assholes. They got some great haircuts though. Gotta love the haircuts in the future. And the atheists, they find mother and father like broken after they leapt from space at the end of last season. And we meet these two characters. So there's this woman Decima, who has this robot called what's her name? It's Vril. There's a robot called Vril, who Decima treats as like her daughter, like a surrogate daughter, like a doll or like a Tamagotchi. She's just like this artificial construct who plays the role of her daughter, because Decima is really sad that she had a daughter and the daughter died or something. They haven't fully explained it yet, but Decima keeps this robot as like a surrogate child, a little bit like that Black Mirror episode. It was quite fun. So the atheists bring mother and father back to their ship. We get to see a little bit of this tropical zone. Interesting features. If you look to your left during this tour of the tropical zone, you'll see there are giant continuous whirlpools going on here. And the water is acid, by the way. That's a little bit of a curveball, because like the idea of the tropical zone is that it's like safe and plentiful and you can like hang out safely here. But by the way, the water is acid. And they're on like a sort of an island that's like encircled by a moat of this acid water. And I think that like this land bridge goes underwater periodically. So like there's a tide that comes in and like covers this land bridge with acid water. So like, yeah, the tropical zone is like habitable and nice, but also it's surrounded by acid and it's dangerous. So, you know, you take the good with the bad. And the whirlpools, the creator talked about the whirlpools in the official podcast, and he said that the reason why there are these continuous whirlpools happening is because, remember those holes that we saw in the planet, those pits, these things. So these pits are all over the planet. And these pits go all the way down into the center of the planet, into the core, which has this like weird molten thing in it. So all these pits, they exist not only on the ground, they also exist on the surface like of the water as well. So that's the cause of these whirlpools, is that there's like these pits underground that the water's like draining down into there. But I guess something is also like pushing the water back up continuously. I don't know how that works, but those pits are the reason for the whirlpools. And the creator of the show referred to them as arteries, which I thought was interesting. That they called the pits arteries, and I'm not sure what that's about. It suggests that the planet is alive, you know? There is a sense that this planet is alive, that it has an intelligence. And I get the sense from season 1 that this like fiery molten core that we found in the center of the planet last season, I think that it is the god that has been whispering to people and manipulating people last season. I think this is the god. Partly because... So we come to this like atheist base, which is called the Tarantula. This is like their big spaceship, and the Tarantula like was hinted at in like a Easter egg on a season 1 website, and I was all like, "Ooh, like what's so special about the Tarantula? What's it got inside of it?" Is what it sort of hinted at in the Easter egg. But I think what's inside of it is the Trust AI. So the atheists like bring mother and father back online. They fix them, and we get a cool action scene where mother like does a pretty cool flip. Whoa, look at that. Look at Amanda Collins go. Is that Amanda Collins or is that a stunt person? Woo, look at that. Is that... what? Look at her face. Is that Amanda Collins or is that a stunt person? I imagine it would have to be a stunt person. I think that person looks different to Amanda Collins. I don't know, but I like her cool move. I feel like the showrunners felt obligated to have like a violent combat scene at the start of the show, because of course it is mandatory under United States law that all television programs must have violence, lest people get bored. But they wake up mother and father, and then mother is introduced to this computer called the Trust. This is a quantum computer, an AI supercomputer that like runs the atheist colony. And it's like this disembodied voice that speaks, and the atheists obey. So obviously, they're doing the thing of like, ooh, atheists are following a voice from above, just like God. What if atheism is the real religion? They're doing that, which is like, okay. But if you look at the design, like, look at this lovely, like, organic quantum computer design that they've got going on. Look at the way it moves. Look at the light. Look at the shapes. It looks very similar to this from season 1. This is the core of the planet in season 1, episode 10. It's that's like a red quantum computer. That's like a blue quantum computer, but they look very similar, right? And so, a lot of the theories and a lot of the interpretations that people have had of season 1 is the idea that, the mysterious godlike voice that was manipulating people in season 1, it is some kind of computer. It's some kind of ancient AI, because we know that humans lived on Kepler-22b millions of years ago. And I think this is a remnant of that. And so I think this sets up a sort of an AI versus AI, God versus God battle going on this season. I think we've got the blue computer that leads the atheists going up against the red computer that runs the religious people. I don't know if it'll be that simple, but I think there's definitely a parallel here. So I thought that was really fun. Yeah, and they call it the Trust. This computer is called the Trust, which is basically another word for faith, right? If you have trust in something, if you have faith in something, that's basically the same thing. So, yeah, this computer is very much a god to the atheists. And they talk about how this is sort of like a utilitarian computer. Like, its job is to help humans flourish and to prevent humans from suffering. And that's a very, standard like philosophy concept, the idea of like, how do we build a moral society? How do we make moral decisions? We make those decisions which benefit the most people and harm the fewest people. The Incorruptible Quantum 6. What the fuck does that mean? It's a quantum computer. I don't know what the 6 means. Is this like the 6th quantum computer? Or are there 5 other quantum computers? I don't know. And one of the other interesting wrinkles is that this computer was built by Campion Sturges, who also created Mother. Let me pull up Campion Sturges. This fella, who we saw last season. He like reprogrammed Mother and changed her from a deadly necromancer to a mother and a caregiver. That's what we saw last season. And so apparently, like, the Trust and Mother are siblings because they both share the same creator, which is quite lovely. But I mean, we know that Mother has gone off her programming and gone off her intended mission in a lot of ways. And the Trust also is not beyond questioning, I think. Thanks for the super chats from Toto95. And thanks for the super chat from Aislinn Deal, who says, how do you feel about the fact that a lot of the lore is explained out of the show? Yeah, it is curious to me that in season 1, like, there are all these mysteries and questions raised, and a lot of it was very ambiguous, but then the creator of the show, Aaron Guzikowski, came in, and in a bunch of interviews and podcasts, he explained a lot of the mysteries. He explained what, like, the masked men were about, and the cards, and the birthing prisons and stuff. My arch enemy, Alt Shift X, has a video explaining all of that. And yeah, it is curious to me that the creator, a lot of the lore is explained by the creator outside of the show itself. Like, the sense that I get is that the creator realized, oh, I didn't quite explain enough in season 1. Like, he wanted us to know these things, but he didn't quite explain it in the show, so he explained it outside of the show. And so my speculation is that maybe in season 2 will be a bit more direct about explaining things to us. So, we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, Mother meets the Trust, and we see Marcus, who is the lone Mithraic believer, and he sees this atheist spaceship approaching. So Marcus pulls out his trusty crossbow, and he manages to shoot down this bomber spaceship and commandeer it single-handedly with a crossbow, which is pretty badass. And it kind of makes sense for his character, because Marcus was a atheist child soldier. You know, he was in the trenches. Originally his name was Caleb, and he was conscripted to the atheist army as a child. We saw him in flashbacks in season 1, and he had a really tough upbringing, and he had to fight to survive. And so it sort of makes sense that he has this particular set of skills, being able to play the insurgent and play the terrorist and take down the bomber and stuff. So, you know, I think that sort of makes sense for him to have these capabilities. He enjoys some delicious canned beef, and then he flies the spaceship to go and like attack the atheist collective. And I think that, you know, this sort of shows how his modus operandi changes. Like right now he's like, yeah, I'm a soldier of God, nothing can stand against me, I'm totally willing to just do like a suicide run on the atheist camp. So he's super violent, super like balls out aggressive at the start of this season. But when this strategy changes and the atheists repel his attack, that's when he starts going, all right, like plan B, I'm gonna try and like gather support through my words and my charisma instead of just being a crazy suicide bomber. So I like how that changes. I'm a little bit confused about, like, they say that spaceships can't fly here in the tropical zone because there's an electromagnetic field that like disrupts the technology or something, and the EMF field also prevents the mysterious voice on this planet from speaking to people. They say that ships can't fly, but the ship like sort of flies and then it like crashes. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you can fly, but flying doesn't work very well on this planet, in the tropical zone. I like this guy Cleaver. Cleaver seems to be like the leader of the atheist collective, and he basically just does whatever the trust computer says. I like his look. Like, he's got like these like atheist face tattoo, soldier, badass, hardcore tattoos going on, but he's also got these like sort of dorky glasses, you know, these just sort of practical glasses. And he sort of like looks tough, but he also like does what the robot says, and he's sort of conciliatory and tries to get everyone to get along. I don't know. He's sort of he's a sort of a mixed, balanced, interesting character to me, and we haven't really got his story yet. We haven't really got his backstory, but they've sort of alluded to it, so I think we'll see it. So yeah, like Marcus crashes into the acid ocean, and he looks like he's fucked. His ship is sinking. He looks like he's doomed, but he fires his grapple hook, and he like this effect looked really weird to me. Like look at this distance. All right, this is how much acid ocean is between him and the shore. But then he like pulls himself over. Look how much distance there is. But then he just pulls himself over the water. Like watch this. He just goes boing, and then lands on the other side. What? How did that happen? He just flies across like Spider-Man, regular Miles Morales over here. Boink, and he just lands on the solid rock and somehow doesn't break every bone in his body. It just looks so fucking silly. He just goes, whee, and just lands on the rock. It's so far. How is he not dead? How did it support him? Where is the realistic physics in my space robot snake alien show? Is it too much to ask for some physical realism here, guys? I don't know. That effect just seemed really dumb to me. But yeah, he runs off and he like finds a special cave. Intro sequence. There's some new stuff in the intro sequence, which is cool. There is now this tree. Because there's a lot of talk about the tree of knowledge and like the prophecy that they're going to find, like like in the Bible, the tree of knowledge. You eat the fruit and then you realize that you're naked, and then God casts you out of the Garden of Eden. It's all the Genesis Bible stuff they're talking about. And I like how they emphasize the roots. Like, it's not just about the branches of the tree, it's about the roots. You know, it's about sort of what lies beneath the earth. It's sort of what is unseen. It's sort of, I don't know, to me it evokes like the history of this planet. Like, they're constantly like unearthing all of these ancient artifacts on this planet. And I don't know, the roots to me like evoke this sort of unseen underlying history to this planet. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's quite an appropriate image to add to the intro. Marcus hanging out. he finds this special cave, and it's got this convenient like plant that he can climb up to get there, and it's got the Mithraic symbol there. Yeah. And you got to wonder who put that there. Was that put there by like the ancient humans who once inhabited the planet? I mean, it looks like it's like in the geology of the rock. Like it looks like a seam of gold, like in the strata of sediment or something. Like it looks like almost like a natural part of the rock, that symbol. Which makes me think like maybe the planet itself put it there. Maybe like the molten core soul god put it there. Maybe this is an ongoing manipulation of Marcus by the intelligence of the planet. But then again, like the voice abandoned Marcus last season. Last season, the soul's voice abandoned Marcus, and it sort of chose Paul as the new chosen one of the planet. So I don't know. Like it's mysterious, like where this symbol came from. Back at the Atheist Collective, the family reunites. Yeah, Campion's voice is an octave deeper. Like puberty really did a number on him. He's grown about 7 feet. But the family's all happy to get together, and Mother lies about her serpent baby. Because remember last season, Mother gave birth to a flying robot serpent, and Mother conceals that fact from everyone now. And she talks later about how she feels shame about her decision to go and, have a snake baby with Milk God. And so, I think this continues Mother and Father's journeys as these robots who aren't meant to have emotions, but they're forced into making these difficult decisions and having these desires and fears and hopes. And we can see their humanity gradually develop, and they develop human virtues and they develop human vices and sins. And so part of that is Mother wants to hide her mistakes. So as ever, I think it's really lovely seeing their humanity grow. I think that's quite fun. And yeah, we see all the parents with the kids hanging out. See more of the tropical zone. I quite like the design of the tropical zone. Like, it looks to me as though they've got some real plants, and then they've added on some like fake made up alien plants, and they've got a bit of CGI in there and a bit of real stuff. I think it's pretty effective. Like, it's colorful, it's alien, but it feels kind of grounded as well. I quite like the design of the tropical zone. Tempest, they're eating the fruit off the trees. It looks to me like they just glued a bunch of like beetroot to a tree. It looks quite silly to me, but I kind of like the design. Like I like how they've taken like real plants and they've sort of modified them and added to them so that they look alien. It's pretty cool. And obviously, like, food was a big issue in season 1, because they were trying to eat these carbos, which were like these potatoes, these alien potatoes that grew in the ground, but it turned out they were radioactive, so they couldn't eat them anymore. So they started eating the devolved human creatures instead. But now they've got like plentiful food, a little bit like Lost. In like Lost, when like they couldn't get food, but then they had plentiful food, and like, just having the conditions of the planet evolve so the story can evolve is always cool. So the family gets a new home, and then there's a video game. So like the atheists, since they had a war against the Mithraic, the atheists have a video game that is about killing necromancers, because the necromancer robots were the super soldiers used by the Mithraic against the atheists. So like destroying the necromancers is their idea of a fun video game, which is obviously a bit upsetting for Mother, but that's the way it is. She's got to adapt. And so like, I kind of like it because it creates this sort of cultural, there is stigma and there's prejudice and there's history between the atheists and the Mithraic that's not going to go away. So they talk about how, these Mithraic children, Hunter and Tempest and Vita and Holly, are not accepted by the atheists because of the history of this war. Hunter at one point says this line about how, this is the way it's going to be. There's going to be conflict between the atheists and the religious people forever. It's a sort of bleak fatalism, realism that I enjoy. That's one of the things that I like about The Expanse, the sci-fi series The Expanse, because it's a show where like it's about how the problems that humanity have are the problems that we always have. Whether we're on Earth, whether we're in space in the future, whether we're living in caves in prehistoric times, Our problem is always our factionalism, our tribalism, our divisions, our prejudice, our greed, our hatred, our shame. All of those human problems are the same problems we've always had and will always have if you look at history. And that's very much the case in Raised by Wolves. So mother and father have a little moment to discuss father's feelings of like resentment, because mother did kill father in season 1. Mother like lied and like ran off with Milk God and had a snake baby, and like mother was not very nice to father, not very considerate of father's feelings last season. So there's still a bit of resentment there. And father last season, he was going to wipe his own memories. He was going to erase his memories, essentially like kill himself. And father now is like, well, things seem to be going now, so I guess I won't kill myself until further notice. I'll postpone the erasure of my memories until further notice, which is kind of but it still remains a very real option for me, mother. That strikes me as like emotionally manipulative. Like he's saying, well, things seem kind of good now, so I won't kill myself, but I might do it later if like you're not nice to me. Like that's kind of how it reads there, and that kind of emotional blackmail is not befitting of father. Father is not normally like that, but he has been, treated pretty badly. He's got a pretty raw deal in season 1, so I don't know. We're seeing some darkness and some complexity from both of the androids. Father is very lovable because he's normally quite naive and honest and sincere, and he just wants to do right by his family. But he's hurt. He's damaged by what happened last season, and we see that here, and we see his behavior. We see that reflected in his behavior. So that relationship remains fraught. This particular shot, I thought the CGI, like these like CGI trees like standing out from the natural real trees, looks very obvious to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but like some of the CGI is bad in these first 2 episodes, in my opinion. So Marcus is hanging out, walking by an acid stream. He finds a weird little yellow orb on the ground and just eats it off a cactus. He's like, cactus globes, yummy. Which seems like a terrible fucking idea. Look at the like yellow lines as like it's like the yellow egg amber is like dripping down the cactus. That is a weird plant. I like the design of it, like it looks inspired by real life, but like altered. I don't know what, like, I feel like I'm getting mixed messages from this organism, because like normally if you've got like spikes and stuff, you're trying to say like fuck off, don't eat me. That's what spikes mean, whether on animals or on punks or on people. If there's spikes on someone, they're saying fuck off, don't eat me. But why would you make something so delicious and put it amidst the spikes? Like, do you want people to eat it or not? What's the life cycle of this cactus? I feel like I want to see more animals on Kepler 22b in the tropical zone. I want to see how this life cycle works and this ecosystem works. But we don't see a lot of them just yet. So Marcus sees that these Mithraic prisoners of the atheists are trying to escape, and one of them blows up because they have these bomb collars installed as like this horrible way to prevent the prisoners escaping. So one of them just blows up. But the 2 people standing next to them are Decima and Vril. That's Vril and Decima standing next to the middle guy who blows up. He blows up, but then Decima and Vril are okay? They're standing right next to him. How did Decima and Vril survive this explosion? That is Decima and Vril, right? It is, isn't it? What the fuck? Because yeah, that guy blows up, and yeah, Decima and Vril are just lying there, but like, they're okay. Oh, alright, they got some blood on them. But that seems very kind of silly and unrealistic. I know I shouldn't be picking apart this petty stuff, but that is silly, right? Like, they were standing right next to him, and he blew up, and she's just got like, oh yeah, I just got some blood on my forehead, but I'm fine. Like, really? Okay, so Marcus cuts a piece out of Vril, which is a pretty crazy thing to do. And, Decima is upset because Vril is like a surrogate daughter. But it turns out that inside Vril, the android, is a little android piece that Marcus is able to use to disarm the bomb collars. So Again, Marcus is this like resourceful, experienced, atheist, insurgent, terrorist dude, and that's how he's able to know all these things. And I like that, and that also shows us that these like bomb collars are not new. Like the atheists have been using these bomb collars for long enough that Marcus is familiar with them and familiar with how to disarm them. So that tells you that this is not new. The atheists have always kind of been dicks, and it's interesting that like Caleb or Marcus as an atheist knows how to disarm atheist bomb collars. Like that might suggest that Marcus was working against the atheists, or maybe the Mithraic also used the bomb collars. I don't know, but he like disables it and he saves Decima, and then on Decima's insistence, he also disables Vril's bomb collar and saves Vril. But Marcus is like saying, you're too old to play with dolls. Marcus doesn't approve of Decima's relationship with this android, using an android as a surrogate child. Marcus dislikes androids in general, probably partly because of his experiences fighting necromancers like Mother, So prejudices, history, I like how all of that stuff informs the present story. So they gotta like run away from the atheists and whatever. And we see the Mother's family and the Mithraic children trying to like fit in with the atheist colony, and the atheists don't like them. There's a bit of like prejudice here. And like Mother is disappointed that the atheists aren't like philosophers and artists and like cool enlightened people. That's what she was hoping for, but it's not what she gets. And we get this nice line from Sue, who says that, well, the kind of people who survive the end of the world, they're not like nice people. Like the people who survive war, the people who survive apocalypse, they're not like cool, friendly people who everyone would get along with. They're like fighters and survivors, like Marcus and like Sue. It's sometimes you got to be nasty to survive nasty circumstances. And so Mother's naivety and optimism is challenged here. I sort of love that about the androids. Like even Mother, who has been through and done a lot of messed up stuff, she's still got that optimism and she's still got that naivety, and that's something about all the androids. I think like the androids are like sort of undespoiled. They're like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden before eating the tree of knowledge. The androids don't know better than to believe in the goodness of humanity. Like the androids believe in the goodness of humanity more than the humans do. The humans tend to be the cynical ones and the sinful ones, the ones who are despoiled by sin and who have eaten from the tree of knowledge symbolically. So I enjoy that quite a lot. Hellbird in the live chat says that the explosive collar could be designed to only kill the wearer, to prevent prisoners using them as suicide bombs to kill their captors. That's smart, Hellbird. Yeah, you're probably right. Because we were just discussing how... Where is it? We were just discussing how Decima and Vril survived this explosion. This guy was standing right next to Decima and Vril, and he exploded, but it didn't kill the people next to him. And you're right. Like, if these bomb collars could be used to hurt the people around you, yeah, they could be used as suicide bombs to kill your captors. So yeah, that's a great point. I don't know if the showrunners necessarily thought about it that deeply, but yeah, I think that's a great explanation. So Paul turns up, and of course last season Paul shot Sue because Sue killed Paul's real parents and took their face, which is a reasonable thing to be angry about. Like, Sue did murder Paul's parents and did deceive him, so there is understandably a bit of discomfort in this relationship, and like Sue wants to like heal that relationship because she views Paul as like an almost miraculous child because she couldn't have children herself, and so her surrogate parenthood of Paul is very important to her. But yeah, there's a little bit of work to be done in repairing that relationship. Then this fella Cleaver, he declares that Mother, who is also called Lamia. I think Lamia is like a snake goddess or a snake monster in mythology. I don't remember the exact details, but yeah, Lamia is cool. And Cleaver says, hey, like, I know you hate the Mithraics because you were at war with the Mithraics, but you guys need to be nice. So, there is like a harshness to the atheist collective, but they also, they welcome the Mithraic into their group, or at least, they accept them to some extent, which is, they didn't need to do that. And like one of the atheists says, one of the atheist people says that like, hey, like, if the Mithraic were in charge, they would not have like accepted us. They would not have welcomed us into their community. But the atheists are accepting these Mithraic. Some of the other Mithraic, they are imprisoning and blowing up with bombs. But at least Mother's family they are keeping. Maybe that's honestly like a strategic thing, because like they talk about how children are very precious and very valuable, because like they're trying to restart the human race here. And there are not many people in this population, so like every person is precious, especially children. So maybe it's actually more of a sort of a rational, strategic decision to keep the Mithraic children, just because they need people, they need children, they need humanity. They talk about Paul's mouse, because remember last season Paul got a pet mouse on the Mithraic Ark, and he dropped the mouse down a pit accidentally, but then the mouse miraculously came back. So this is not just an ordinary mouse, this is a goddamn miracle mouse, okay? And he wants it back. The atheists have it and he wants it back. And I wonder if that mouse might sort of play a role this season. Because that mouse led Paul to those mysterious cave paintings in season 1, so I wonder if the mouse might continue to sort of act as an agent of Sol's voice. Because that's the thing, like the evil snake god Sol planet god voice, it is unable to speak to people in the tropical zone, apparently, because of the electromagnetic field. And I wonder if the fact that the mouse is here in the tropical zone, maybe the mouse could be the agent, and maybe that's the sneaky way that the Sol god can operate in the tropical zone despite the EMF. Maybe. I don't know. Just speculation. So yeah, Sue wants to repair her relationship with Paul, and Paul basically tells her to fuck off. So, it's a difficult relationship, understandably. Sue's sad. Sue goes and investigates the planet, and what else happens? Oh yes, so they talk about the voice. They talk about the voice of Sol, the mysterious godly voice, and they talk and Sue discovers that it is a like physical detectable signal. That they use the word signal to describe the voice of God. So it is like a physical thing that can be explained by science. So that sort of supports the idea that it is an AI. It is something technological and scientific, and I think it's the planet core. And yeah, Mother continues to lie about having birthed a serpent, and she pretends that, I just had a human baby. My baby was not even slightly a snake. 100% human, just dead. Human and dead, not snake and evil. But yeah, that lie is not going to last very well. So yeah, Sue goes off to investigate the planet, and she finds out about the signal thing. Campion has started collecting rocks. Poisonous rocks. Because that's what teenagers do, right? What is adolescence if not collecting rocks? Because he learned to use like a slingshot last season, and Father comments on how he's like becoming a warrior. Hellbird talks about a mouse being a malevolent entity to influence people. Maybe that's a Disney reference. Saying Mickey Mouse is a evil malevolent force. I wonder if the mouse might play the role of like the serpent in the Garden of Eden story, because in the Garden of Eden story in the Bible, like the snake is the voice of the devil who says, hey, you should eat some delicious apples, they're gonna make you full of original sin. I wonder if the mouse is going to be the agent of the evil god in this world. But yeah, so Campion is, he's got his own interests and hobbies, and one of them is collecting poisonous rocks. He's developing his own values and his own morals and ideals and his own relationships. Campion is growing up, so it's nice to see that happen. Mother and father are trying to be a parent to him. Mother apologizes for going AWOL last season. That makes sense. Those are goodbye rocks, Samantha says in the live chat. Yeah. There's a hello rock for one purpose, and there's a goodbye rock. That's the pointy one. And so we start to see the system of justice that the atheist collective has. So this woman is required to like stand in the outside and just like express her remorse for breaking the law and threatening someone. So they've got this sort of like public punishment thing going on, and we see more of that later. They've got like these sayings: violence is pain, pain is violence, war is peace, truth is lies. It does feel quite dystopian and creepy. So the trust AI computer, it gives people these little marbles which like tells them what their job is today. All of this feels very like Westworld season 3 to me. You know, having this Rehoboam, having this AI in charge of everything. And I think that's like something that a lot of people are thinking about these days with, you know, like with social media and Twitter and Facebook and all these sorts of automated systems that are increasingly running our lives and ordering us around. I think that's something that a lot of, you know, people who write stories are thinking about, understandably. We get another nice view of this sort of land bridge connecting the tropical zone with the giant acid whirlpools. I wonder if someone's going to get sucked down the acid whirlpool at some point this season. That would make sense. I also like these sort of like geologic formations, these sort of like yellowy rocks with the sort of curved. Those look familiar to me. I'm no geologist, but I've seen stuff like this in real environments. I'd be interested to know what the connection is there. But you know, it looks cool. It looks alien. It looks alien, but it looks inspired by real Earth stuff. You know. Ik Ben Pick in the live chat says, "Is the planet made of technology?" Then, yeah. I mean, I think we can speculate about, like, you know, is this planet a naturally formed planet, or is this a designed, created planet? Like, most planets don't have, you know, giant like weird gravity defying cores, like these weird just spheres of like, you can see the curvature of it. It's not very big. This is a small molten core that's like floating in the center of this like hollow space that has all these like pit arteries in it. Like this, I don't know much about planetology and astronomy and cosmology, but this does not look like a natural planet to me. You know, maybe it was a natural planet, but this like AI, this technological construct, like altered it. I mean, maybe this was like terraformed by this intelligence for humans, because, you know, this planet happens to have the right atmosphere. It happens to have food on the ground that humans can eat. It happens to have like a magnetosphere and like 1G of gravity. Like, you know, maybe it was an intelligence that made this planet suitable for humans. And that is all related to the snakes. I mean, these tunnels look like something that snakes might travel through, right? The creator of the show talked last season about, you know, this is like a transport network. This is like a tube, like a train subway system is what these tunnels are. And, you know, because of the shape, I can only imagine that's related to snakes. So I think so my point is that I think this planet might be made for serpents. This is a planet made for snakes as much as it is made for humans. My impression of season 1 was that like the god in charge of this planet originally like wanted to help humans, but humans disappointed him, so he started siding with the snakes instead, and he used the humans to produce more snakes, something like that. I don't know. And we get this little school, this little atheist school, and apparently this robot is the teacher in the school. And then the atheists get like Mother to be the teacher today. So it's interesting that they've got robots raising their children, which is also something that I think is relatable. Like, you know, the creator of the show, Aaron Guzikowski, is a parent, and I think a lot of parents these days are thinking about the ways in which systems and machines and the internet and technology, I mean, especially with like the at-home learning that's happening because of COVID, you know, not to bring the real world into this, but like because of the current pandemic, over the last couple of years, like there's a lot of like kids who have had to be learning over Zoom. They've had to like go to school online on the internet. They've been raised by machines and taught by machines to a certain extent. Raised by technology, interfacing with technology as their way of learning and interacting with the world and the people around them. So there's something sort of uncannily real about this idea of seeing a classroom of children with a robot at the head of it. And it shows more about like, you know, the system, the trust, the computer is what's like in charge of the atheist colony, not the humans, which is, you know, a bit disconcerting. And obviously that also parallels, you know, Mother as a robot who was raising her human children. So that's all interesting. Yeah, so Mother is all chirpy and positive, and she's gonna teach the kids. I love this moment, like Father, like look how like just nice he is. He's just like, you know, welcoming his fellow atheist compatriots on this fine day. He's like Ned Flanders, like hi diddly do neighborino, and these atheists are just like fuck you, go back to the earth you destroyed, you Mithraic scum. And of course, ironically, Father was never a Mithraic. Father is an atheist android built by the atheist Campion Sturges to raise an atheist colony. But these atheists just associate Father with Mother, who was a necromancer, a Mithraic necromancer at one point, and with the children, who were Mithraic children. And, you know, these, like, atheist people don't understand those nuances of Father's history, and so he just lumps Father in with the Mithraics, and he hates him because he's vaguely associated with a group that he feels prejudice against. So it's like, you know, it shows how, like prejudice is never logical. Like, hating people for their membership of a group is usually not logical. It's just like this, cognitive shortcut that we use to simplify our lives. You know, like, to simplify our lives, we put people in categories. We say, you are good or you are bad. You are in my political group or you're in the enemy political group. You're in my nation or my tribe or my sports team, or you are the enemy. And that's what we're saying here. And it's sad because Father and Vita do not deserve this shit. And so they go looking for food. By the way, like, look at all these holes in the rock. Look at all these, like, circular holes. That, to me, looks similar to the pits in the planet core, which I think it looks like they are for snakes. I think these pits are for snakes. And the fact that this whole, like, planet seems to be riddled with these holes, large or small, you know, which were referred to as arteries by the series creator. Like, these are like the small veins and arteries and vesicles and blood vessels that are, like, you know, spreading and distributing the energy and the consciousness of this planet. Like, this planet seems like something that is alive. It is an organism in and of itself. So I very much get that sense from it. So Father and Vita investigate this cave, and Father finds these mysterious markings, these, like, paintings on the caves. And it looks to me as though there's multiple layers of these paintings. There's like the red paint that's been put over, like, these etchings and markings. It looks quite aggressive as well. Like, the red color looks almost like blood, and these, like, gouges and marks look like they've been, like, carved in, you know? So this speaks of some kind of violent past to this planet, I think. Like a human, intelligent past, but like a violent and dark and angry one. I mean, we saw last season that there were these humans who lived and still live on the planet somewhere. And the series creator said that these are like devolved humans. Like, there used to be humans living on the planet, but now they've sort of changed, and they were like driven underground by like the serpents who lived here. And I imagine those are the people who made these marks upon the planet. And last season, it seemed as though these humans were trying to communicate with Mother, and they were trying to warn her that, hey, there's a snake god here. He's trying to make more snakes. It's not good. Because we got like that vision of the birthing prison. Yeah, God damn it. Where did I put that image? I haven't got that image right now. But we saw these visions last season of like this birthing prison that was used to like make more snakes. And it seems as though the masked men were trying to like warn against, this stuff. The cage, which was used in the ancient past of this planet. Like, androids or humans were used to like birth more serpents. So I think this might be sort of related to that sort of ancient conflict or suffering or oppression that happened of the human people by the snakes in the ancient past. And and Vita, bless her heart, she finds like these like buried like skeletal ruins of like a dead ancient android, and she's like, it's a toy. And I'm pretty sure what she's actually holding there is the broken skull of an ancient android. But Father's like, but she's like, toys, I just want toys. She's a kid. But Father like recovers it and investigates this like android corpse. In some of the trailers, like we saw Father like pouring skin or like liquid milk skin onto the ancient desiccated android corpse. So I wonder if in later episodes Father is going to try and like revive this dead android, and maybe they will, you know, get to speak to this like ancient intelligence who was on the planet. Like this android, maybe this android saw what was going on, you know, all the creepy shit in like the ancient days of this planet. Maybe we're going to hear a first-hand account of what happened from like a weird broken down resurrected android. I think that could be really cool, if that's what they're doing. What else is in me little notes? So they go to the cave, and Marcus and Decima and Vril are forming this little family. And we learn that Decima is a quantum gravity engineer. So she's a very clever engineering sciencey person. And I enjoy how, like, you know, she's like a smart scientist person, but she's also a totally uncritical believer in like Mithraic prophecy and religion. Like when Marcus talks about the prophecy, she's just like immediately totally on board, and that's very real, of course, because there are lots and lots of people in the real world who like have a very like, you know, rational, critical, scientific side, and they also have faith, and they have belief, and they have an uncritical side, which, you know, is a spectrum that everyone is on, I suppose. And we learn that Decima was captured by the atheists, and the atheists like forced her to like help them hijack the ark that they used to fly to this planet, which I think is a cool backstory. And she also talks about how like she like didn't tell the atheists that the hibernation system didn't work, because remember, like last season we saw how on the ark the Mithraic people all plugged into this like stasis, because like the trip took 13 years, and so during that 13-year trip through space, they were plugged into like this virtual reality simulation in these hibernation pods. But Decima says this episode that the hibernation system wasn't working on this hijacked ship that the atheists took, and she didn't tell the atheists that, so they were like really pissed off when they had to like stay awake for most of the trip. Which is interesting. I guess that means that they are all 12 years older. Except, hang on, how does that even work? Because we saw children. We saw atheist children in the atheist school. These kids, some of these kids look less than 12 years old, don't they? Oh shit, where are we? Some of these kids, these ones, they look younger than 12. But they were on a 12-year trip from Earth to Kepler 22b. And they weren't in the hibernation pods because the hibernation pods weren't working. Is that a plot hole? Maybe they just had like some hibernation pods working and they kept the kids in the hibernation pods. But then like their parents would have grown 12 years older. Because like my point is that like in the hibernation pods you apparently don't age, and that's why like Paul looks the same when he got into the pod as when he got out of the pod, even though it took a 13-year trip. But these kids, if the hibernation pods weren't working, they should be 12 years older, but they're not. Is that a plot hole? I think that might be a plot hole. Anyway. Oh, everyone in the live chat's just saying they were just having kids and boning on board. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that explains it. That these kids were just born on the ship. What a weird way to grow up. They've never seen a planet before. They've never been on Earth before, and now they arrive on Kepler 22b. That'd be weird, wouldn't it? But what about the kids who were kids already when they got on the ship? They would have aged 12 years. Yeah, I kind of want like a spin-off series just set on the spaceship. It could be a generation ship sort of thing, Hellbird says in the live chat. Yeah, I mean, but it wasn't designed as such. Like, the ship was designed to have everyone in hibernation in the simulation. And so, like, what would it have been like living for 13 years on a ship that was not really designed to be lived in? Like, that could have got ugly. What's that movie? What's that, like... There's like a sci-fi B-movie... It's called I don't know what it's called, but it's about like people being stuck on a ship and everything turns to shit. It's like a generation ship and everything goes wrong and people like turn into monsters and generations. I don't know. I feel like there might be something fucky going on with the atheist arc, but I'm intrigued. I want to know more. Anyway, so we're on the tropical zone and there's a big ass tree. It's a mega seed, Morty. You gotta and Campion gets some mega seeds. The design of this tree, I like it, but also, oh yeah, Pandorum. Yeah, that's the name of the movie. And yeah, Lindsay in the live chat says, "What did they eat?" Like exactly right. Like part of the point of the hibernation pods, surely, is to mean that you don't need food and you don't need like all of the stuff that you normally need when you're alive. So, like, would the Ark even have had the supplies to, like, feed everyone on the atheist ship? I got a lot of questions about that atheist Ark trip. That could have been really interesting. Where are we? So, yeah, like, Paul climbs up a tree and he gets these mega seeds from the tree, and I don't really understand how this tree is meant to work. Like, it's got these pods, like these seeds, right? And like, I thought trees normally wanted the pods to like land on the ground so that they can like grow into new trees, but these pods are hanging above the tree itself. Like, if those pods fell off the tree, they would just land on the tree. They couldn't grow on the tree, could they? Or maybe the seeds are meant to be like eaten by birds. Like, maybe birds are meant to swallow the seeds and then poop them out. Sometimes that's what happens. And there is like a bird nest there, so like maybe that is how the ecosystem works. I don't know. I'm just curious. I just want to know more. So Campion climbs up and he gets some mega seeds and he also gets some eggs. And then Paul, while he's on the ground, he just happens to find this like ancient Mithraic artifact on this planet, which is just sitting like just on the surface, very conveniently, as though placed there by some god. Or maybe it was placed there by, like, the masked people, by, like, the humans who were around. Like, when are we going to see those humans again? I'm really curious about, like, those humans. Should have known in the live chat says that maybe these seed pods are hanging there for flying snakes to pick up. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess a flying snake would be exactly the kind of creature that might like to come and nibble on those pods. Because that's the thing, like, yeah, like, this planet does seem as though it's, like, designed to support life, but maybe the kind of life that it's meant to support is not humans, it's snakes. Anyway, so Paul just happens to find this little box, and he's like, whoa, this is, like, from the prophecy. Because the prophecy is that there's, like, an orphan boy on an empty land, and he's gonna build a city of peace and purity, and he's going to be the leader and the Messiah. And some of the additional things we learn about the prophecy in these 2 episodes are that there's the Sword of Soul, and the Sword of Soul will be used, and they will go to the Tree of Knowledge, and they who eat the fruit of the tree will become pure in this like new city, this new paradise, and this utopia. So very much continuing. Yeah, and so Paul thinks that he is the prophesied one. But Marcus also thinks that he's the prophesied one, and Mother thinks that Campion is the prophesied one, even though Mother doesn't actually believe in, like, the Mithraic prophecy, but, like, she does want her boy to be the leader of men, because everyone wants their child to be the leader of humanity, apparently. Will wield the sword forged in Soul's light. I think someone in episode 2 says, what if the snake is the sword? You know, what if it's not a physical sword? The snake is the weapon that you must tame, and that's the sword in Soul's light. So that's kind of cool. It's reminiscent of all the prophecies in A Song of Ice and Fire, you know, Azor Ahai, the Messiah with the sword, Lightbringer, and so on. And the prophet will be its king. And of course, in season 1, the voice promised Marcus that Marcus would be king of the world, but then the voice seemed to abandon Marcus. So, you know, it's not a very reliable god. I wouldn't be putting too much faith in this particular god. It's a manipulative god. And so, you know, Campion expresses that, you know, he says that he's not an atheist. He believes in things. He just believes in different things to Paul. Because that was one of the themes with Campion in season 1, is that his parents, mother and father, wanted to raise him as an atheist. Look how much younger he looked back in season 1. But Campion persisted in like having religious beliefs and like religious tendencies, even though his parents wanted him to be an atheist. Like Campion prayed, and Campion developed these like sort of moral values specific to him. And so I really, you know, I like that. I like how Campion sort of grows up and does his own thing, and that continues in season 2. And yeah, he says that Sol, he says that, you know, the mysterious voice on this planet, it is real, but it's evil. And that's always my favorite kind of religious belief, which is God is real, but he's a dick. Like, that's a very, like, 5,000 IQ theory, I reckon. Because, I mean, yeah, like, you know, like, it's the problem of evil. That's like an ancient philosophy problem, right? Like, if God is good, and if God is all-powerful, why did God make mosquitoes and malaria and cancer and Mark Zuckerberg? Why would God make these evil things if God is good? Why does God allow evil to happen? And usually, like, the answer to that is choice. Like, humans have free will. Humans can choose between good and evil. So God allows us to choose evil, even though God is good. But like, there's still some things that are hard to explain there. Like, you know, what about babies who are innocent, who are just born with disease and born into suffering? And what about all of the people who suffer for no fault of their own? Like, how do you explain that kind of evil? I guess that's a very sort of like individualistic way of looking at the world. Like these days, we like to think that every individual has their own moral choices, and we as individual people have our own moral values. Whereas, like, I don't know, if you like read the Bible, there's a lot of like collective punishment, and there's like this entire people, this entire community are good or evil, and they're going to be punished collectively for their collective crimes, like Sodom and Gomorrah and whatever. And I suppose maybe it's a sort of a modern idea to be thinking so individualistically. Like, maybe when a baby is born into suffering and disease, maybe that's because of their community's collective sin, you know? Which today is, you know, that's not how we think morally often, I think. But maybe that's how the problem of evil can be solved from one perspective. I'm no fucking theologian. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just me talking out my ass. But yeah, Campion's solution to the problem of evil is that the reason why God does evil things is because God is evil. God is an evil snake god, and I don't like him. I believe in him, but I don't like him, and I'm not going to do what he says. I think that's a cool theology you got there, Campion. And yeah, because God did tell Campion to kill himself. In season 1, episode 7, Tally told Campion, "You should kill yourself, Campion." And so, understandably, Campion was like, maybe the voice of God is not good. Because God absolutely did fuck with people. But of course, like, you know, you can also have the interpretation of like the God on this planet is not like a true benevolent God. This is the entity on this planet is actually the devil. It is an evil entity. It is a snake creature. It's not God. It's the devil. So maybe that's another solution to the problem of evil. The solution to the problem of evil is, it's not that God allows evil, it's that the devil did it. The devil is responsible for evil. But then you've got to ask, well, if the devil does evil, why doesn't the omnipotent good God stop the devil from doing bad things? And, you know, maybe that takes us back to free will, or, you know, maybe God is not as omnipotent as he says, you know? Maybe God is powerful, he can make planets, he can make people, but he can't stop the devil. Maybe there's an eternal war between the the forces of good and the forces of evil with humanity in the middle. And, it's humanity's ability to choose between the equally balanced forces of good and evil that shifts the balance. Maybe when humans choose good, good can overpower evil, but when humans choose evil, evil can overpower good. So we are the arbiter in the eternal cosmic struggle between God and the devil. Okay, we've gone way... Moving on. So Paul and Campion discuss theology. Paul wants to keep the magic Mithraic box, and Campion's like, fine, but then later on he actually tells mother and father about it. So there's, an ongoing difficult relationship between Paul and Campion. Campion wants to keep his egg. He hopes to grow it as a pet. I like how the kids all want pets in Raised by Wolves. Like Paul gets his mouse, and he's very excited about that. That they mentioned that birds went extinct on Earth. Like Earth's environment was totally ruined by the war, and a lot of the animals died out. And so I guess Kepler 22b probably seems like this is the most like lush, verdant nature and animals that these kids have ever seen. It's really exciting for them to see animals and stuff and nature, so it's pretty understandable. So Marcus wants to be like the leader of a church in this place, and he wants to convert everyone to his side. And remember, like at the start of this episode, Marcus was trying to perform a suicide bombing against the atheist collective. But since that didn't work, now he's like, well, I'm going to be peaceful and I'm going to welcome everyone into my family. So like Marcus is not necessarily totally sincere in this. I think he's being a bit manipulative in the way he's just using whatever strategy will work to achieve his goals and become the king of the planet, He talks about his history, and he talks about how, when he was a kid, when he was a child soldier, he just, he imagined not being alone, and he imagined being connected to other people, and it's sad, like Marcus is a murderer and a megalomaniac, but, he's also just a lonely kid deep down. The series creator Aaron Guzikowski said in the podcast that Marcus is basically still a child. He said that Marcus was kind of broken in the war, and Marcus is not really capable of love. He's a very damaged person, and he's still kind of a child, a sad, lonely, broken child inside. And so, we can feel sympathetic to Marcus because of that. But yeah, he's also kind of evil and manipulative. I mean, look at that face. Would you join that cult? It's funny to me that like Decima becomes like closer and closer to Marcus and sort of gets a crush on him. She hasn't asked him what's wrong with his face. What's with all the dark photon veins that he's got going on? I guess maybe she just doesn't want to be rude. She's just being sensitive, not asking about his weird face. Well, we got a bit of theology discussion going on in the live chat. Love to see it. Meg in the live chat compares Campion and Paul to Cain and Abel, which is absolutely a comparison that they're making, I think. And also the story of Romulus and Remus, because this show is called Raised by Wolves after all, and the founding myth of the city of Rome is that the brothers Romulus and Remus, Romulus built Rome and Romulus killed Remus, I think is the story. So like Cain and Abel, it's like this ancient founding myth of, is it fratricide? Yeah, it's fratricide, isn't it? That kind of is like another version of original sin, brother killing brother. And yet founding the civilization that we live in, Anyway, what's going on? So yeah, Marcus wants to build a church, and he wants people together, and Decima is like pretty on board for his cult, and yeah, I believe you. Despite her scientific mind, she is 100% on board for this weird veiny-faced motherfucker to tell her what to do. Wild. So mother is being, she's got eggs, and all the kids are like, whoa, eggs, fucking eggs, we're gonna get omelets, bro, yeah, eggs. So I enjoy that, and they start painting the eggs, and I like how, like, they show one kid's egg, and it's like, yep, yellow, orange splotches, love it, and then this kid has an egg, and it's like, yeah, I got some, chuck a bit of green on there, ooh, I like Picasso. And then mother, being a robot, has this super, like, intricate, beautiful, like, peacock feather design. And I love that. I love seeing, like, artistic expression from the android. It's like when elephants paint. It's like Coco the gorilla, like, making a self-portrait out of poop or whatever it is that animals do. Like, it's always cool seeing a non-human creating art, which is one of the like biggest arguments that like we should probably not eat animals, is when they have creative expression and when they have play. And I guess that kind of expression is limited in most animals, but you love to see it. And Mother says that she's changed. She says that she's no longer a murderous necromancer killer. She's now a protector. But, next episode, she breaks out the harpoon to go and murder her snake child. So, it's not quite that simple. I guess, you cannot entirely reject your nature, is what this means. Like, Mother wants to be just a caretaker. She wants to let go of her violent past. But can she escape her programming? Can she escape her nature? Can we escape our genetic code? Nature versus nurture, all that stuff. And she notices that one kid has a snake painted onto his egg, and Mother's like, don't do that, snakes are evil. And the kid says that, no, it's not evil. Living things are beautiful. Again, having like a kid express, having these like values about the world is cool. Or I wonder if that's sort of part of like the atheist collective's ideology. Like, what are their views on nature? What are their views on alien nature? I don't know. But yeah, so, and this of course connects to Mother's like internal conflict over the serpent that she birthed. Like, she, in the next episode, needs to see the serpent as her enemy. She needs to go and murder her serpent child. But this boy is telling her that, no, like, all life is beautiful. Even if a snake seems scary, it still has a right to life. And so that's sort of Mother's conundrum. Like, not only is the serpent her child, the serpent is a living thing, and all living things deserve respect and life under some philosophies. So that's part of Mother's conflict there. Interesting, Marcus has a vision of Sue and Paul singing. And it's this lovely, like, warm moment of, what could be. And then we see that it's actually Decima who's singing to Vril. But for a moment, Marcus has this vision of Sue and Paul, which sort of speaks to his other family. Like, for a while there, Marcus, Sue, and Paul were like this beautiful family, especially on the Ark. They all, like, got along and loved each other, and it was the family that they never had. It was what they always wanted. And so there's a tragedy that Marcus has now lost that family in pursuit of his like religious, messianic complex, which is sad. But he's now trying to build a new family with Decima. So, this is like a replacement family for him, I guess. He goes out and prays by the acid sea. He talks about his loneliness. Yeah, I like that, we see this vulnerability from Marcus. Like, he's not just this crazy, evil, terrorist priest. He's also just someone who wants to be loved. And so it's nice having a relatable motivation here. And then I think this guy, Tamburlaine, is this guy. He comes and, like, makes a fiery, burning Mithraic star as like a threat to the Mithraic kids because he resents the Mithraic people for the war. Meanwhile, Paul is like looking at this box, and I don't know. I kind of wish this box was designed a little differently. Like, they talk about this box being like supremely important, and they believe that the seeds of the tree of knowledge are inside this box. But to me, it doesn't look that tough. It doesn't look that ancient. Like, it says, oh, I'm going to need a laser to open this thing. I wish it was, like, made of metal or something that looks more, like, durable and ancient and important. It just looks like a sort of a D20 to me, Whatever. But yeah, this box is important, and it's going to lead to the Tree of Knowledge, the seeds to grow the Tree of Knowledge. Then the star burns, and they interpret this as a threat against the Mithraic kids, and then the episode ends. And in the after show, they show what's going to happen in the next episode, which we'll discuss shortly. And there's like an after show thing where the series creators talk about what's going on. They talk, these sorts of real environments are what inspired like the sort of acid lakes and stuff on Kepler 22b. So I do like how they did that. They filmed a lot of this stuff in South Africa, which is cool. They talk about the pits, and they're described as like these arteries, and these pits are responsible for the ocean. We talked about all that. Cleaver. People don't trust Mother. You guys ready to move on to the next episode? Yeah, they talk about the computer being organic. Apparently, Ridley Scott, who's the executive producer, was responsible for like designing this quantum computer. All right, let's talk about episode 2. What you're talking about in the live chat. This is out finally. Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize this show was out. I could do like a whole rant on like how much I despise the system of like release dates being communicated to people. Like there's like millions of dollars of marketing that is spent creating like billboards and like social media campaigns and television ads to tell people like when release dates are. But still, like millions of people like don't see the ads because, you know, it'll never be seen by everyone. But there's always millions of people who want to know about when the thing is coming out, but they never get to find out. Like even if you're trying to, when I'm trying to find out like when is Raised by Wolves season 2 coming out, it's hard. You've either got to like Google it every day, or it might just surprise you. And what I want is to be able to just like sign up to an email newsletter. Like if I could just put in my email address and when a new season of a show is coming out, it'll email me and I'll just sign up to which shows, you know? That is how I would want it to work. But instead, you've got to just like, there's no way to get notified. There is no way to get notified about a new show coming out that you care about. And I hate that so much. It's such an inefficient system that these companies are spending millions of dollars on ad campaigns. And there's no way to voluntarily say, hey, please tell me when this thing is coming out, when this movie is coming out, when this album is coming out. There's no way to know. And there's this whole like cottage industry. If you type in like Raised by Wolves release date, or Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power release date, or House of the Dragon release date, the whole first page of Google is all these like shitty websites that say, ooh, House of the Dragon release date, cast, plot, details, everything you need to know. And then you click on the article and it says, oh, the release date hasn't come out yet. And there's a million ads on the page. And it's like, why doesn't HBO just have a House of the Dragons website and I can give them my email, and then when there's a new trailer and when there's a release date, they email you? Why does it not work like that? And like, I know that most people wouldn't want to sign up for newsletters and stuff, but just make it an option for those people who care, you know? Like, the problem is that our whole information landscape is based on algorithms. Like, we see what the advertisements and what the social media algorithms decide that we need to see. We are only shown what Facebook's algorithm and Twitter's algorithm lets us see, and whatever's on the front page of your news site of choice. That's so shit. Like, I want some agency and some control over what I see. It's the same problem with YouTube. Like, YouTube users always complain that, like, you don't get to see all of the videos from your favorite creator because the algorithm doesn't show you. And even if you turn on notifications, the notifications don't work half the time because all the algorithms are designed to optimize for engagement, not to optimize for people's own agency. And that's like what they're talking about with the trust in Raised by Wolves, right? Like, the problem with this atheistic society is that it's a computer that decides what everyone does. It's a computer who decides like what people's jobs are. It's a computer who decides what our values are and what the punishments are. And that's a very natural, logical extension from like the algorithm-driven information landscape that we're living in today, where it is computers who decide what shows we find out, what political ads we see, what kind of hashtag content we see, what news we see. Our worldviews are measurably shaped. Our political elections, they're all shaped by algorithms to an increasingly large extent. And that's really fucked up. And I think we need to try and, like, to some extent it's okay. Like, I like it when YouTube recommends to me a video that I would have never heard about. I like the algorithms and the recommendation engines are good sometimes, but I think it's obviously going too far in a lot of places. And I think as people, we need to take more conscious control of what information is fed to us and how it is fed to us and what biases and sources and citations and evidence. Yeah, you don't want to hear this. I'll get off the fucking soapbox. Let's talk about Raised by Wolves Season 2, Episode 2. All right. KPI-driven humanity. Yeah, exactly, Lindsay. All right. Raised by Wolves Season 2. Let's do it. So we get the opening, and Marcus is praying by the acid ocean, and he has a chat with Decima. And yeah, Decima has this moment where there's like this weird, like high pitched sound, this kind of happening, and Decima's like, "Wow, that's like the energy of the god Soul speaking to you. Soul's light. I can like feel it radiating you. I feel it burning inside you." And then Aaron Guzikowski, the show's creator, in the after show says, "Yeah, that's not soul. That's not the divine energy of God. That's radiation." because last season Marcus swallowed these necromancer eyes, and it like poisoned him with this like dangerous quantum techno energy, and like this energy that like Decima is feeling radiating off Marcus, it's not God, it's the radiation of the android eyes burning up inside him. And so there's like this sort of scientific explanation behind Marcus's divinity, and so Marcus is a false prophet, is I think the point. But despite that, Decima is someone who wants to believe. She wants to feel connected, and she wants to follow someone. She says, "I think you're the only human being I've ever actually wanted to touch." And then they develop something of a intimate relationship. Then touch, Marcus says. I love this line, though. I love the awkwardness and the directness of saying, "You are the only human being I've ever actually wanted to touch." I think y'all should put that in your Valentine's card. You should say that to your significant other. "You're the only human being I've ever wanted to touch." I love it. And so yeah, that they start to get more sort of intimate and close, both like religiously and personally. You can really get the sense that Decima has been spending more time with machines than with people lately. Like, we know that she's a quantum energy engineer person, and her best friend is a robot child who is her surrogate child to replace her dead child. You get the sense that she's not been socialized very well lately. I mean, Decima must have felt very isolated, because Decima, for the last 12 years, was on a spaceship full of atheists who hated her. Like, Decima has been a prisoner for all this time. So maybe she has felt very isolated, like socially and personally, and I guess that might be why she is so close to this android, Vril, who is her surrogate daughter. Maybe it's because like she hasn't had enough human contact, and so getting close to Marcus is like this, is exactly what she wanted. It's human contact that she's desperate for, and it's purpose in the form of his like religious leadership. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So they have like a little romantic date next to the deadly acid sea. And yeah, Hunter has that line, "This is how it's going to be." It seems as though there's always going to be conflict and prejudice between the atheists and the religious people. And even though they have left Earth and they've left the past war behind, the divisions still remain and the conflict continues. Sue gives weapons, like guns, to the kids, which is like, oh, okay. It's an American show. You got to have guns in there as soon as possible. And Mother has like a naive faith in the trust in the computer that controls this place. She trusts the justice system here, but very soon she becomes part of that justice system and realizes that it's a bit fucked up, actually. Sue and Mother have a nice sort of close relationship now. They used to be on sort of opposite sides, but they are both mothers now. Mother is a mother to Campion and the other kids, and Sue is a sort of a mother to Paul, or at least she tries to be. So they develop a cute mothers group here. And yeah, Sue talks here about how she's discovered the signal, the mysterious divine voice of soul. It's not magic, it's science, it's technology. And so I think that supports the idea that the god on this planet is actually like a computer. It's like an ancient AI that is manipulating everything. And Mother gets her little job marble, and she learns that her new task is to be the Punisher. She gets this like suit and this mask, and it is her job to beat up the person who burned that Mithraic symbol to threaten the Mithraic kids. This atheist society, though it seems kind of nice in some ways, they use this creepy fucking mask and they use corporal punishment to beat up prisoners like this guy. What's his fucking name? It's Tamerlane. Tamerlane just felt resentful against the Mithraic and resentful against the Trust robot. And so he committed that hate crime, and now Mother comes and beats him up. And the logic is, like, the Trust computer gets Mother to do this, to beat up Tamerlane, because if a human did it, the human might, like, or specifically, like, if the victim was also the punisher, the victim might enjoy punishing the person who hurt them. And you don't want people to enjoy punishment. And I think the subtext here is that Mother starts to enjoy it, despite the fact that she's an android, despite the fact that she's meant to not have feelings. She actually does kind of enjoy beating up the person who threatened her children. And they talk about that later. Like, Mother talks about that with Father, where, Mother's like, oh, it was kind of fucked up. I had to, like, beat up this dude. And then Father's like, that's great, because that means that there is justice for people like us. There is equal justice. Like, androids and humans, atheists and Mithraic, in this atheist collective, we all get equal justice. And yeah, it's like, it's brutal. But, like, I think there's part of Mother and Father who want brutal punishment against the people who tried to threaten their children, So I like how the atheist collective, like, it is pretty dystopian and scary. Like, having this crazy Punisher corporal punishment stuff going on, beating people up in that creepy mask. That is fucked up, but, like, we can, like, sympathize for Mother and Father who want to protect their kids, I almost wish that, like, the burning Mithraic symbol thing, I wish that, like, the crime against the children was a bit more severe, because I feel like it's not the scariest thing that could have happened, the burning star. If it was something that, like, if we got to see the kids getting really, like, freaked out and scared and threatened by Tamerlane's actions, then maybe I feel like this scene would have been more powerful when he was punished. Because, like, during this scene, I just mostly felt sorry for Tamerlane. Like, it is very scary and fucked up to be, like, beaten up by this scary mask person, I feel like it might have been more morally complicated if, like, what Tamerlane did was worse, But anyway, I like this conversation that Mother and Father have. I also love this line. Mother says, "You're smiling, Father. Is that purposeful?" And, like, from an android's perspective, like, everything's purposeful, right? They are rational machines who do things for rational reasons. But they also are humans with human feelings. So it's kind of like, is this smile, is this a purposeful smile? Does this smile perform a function? Or is this smile a sincere emotional expression? Or is this smile like Marcus's smiles? Where Marcus's smiles, I think, are sometimes manipulative. Smiles can be sincere, and smiles can be deliberate and purposeful and manipulative. And androids are always sort of starting to ride that balance between sometimes the androids are acting for a purpose, but sometimes the androids are acting just out of emotion and instinct. Like, that's how Mother described her burgeoning humanity last season. She talked about she just has, like, these impulses. She just feels the need to do things for no reason other than she feels like it. You smile because you feel happy. And so I really like seeing the androids, like, try to process the new experience of having feelings. I think that's really cool. It's something else that's mentioned around here. Tamerlane says, so this guy Tamerlane hates the Trust AI computer that's in charge of the atheist collective. He accuses the Trust of hating human beings, and he says, you're never going to pass the baton. Because the idea is that this Trust AI, it is a robot. It's a computer built by Campion Sturges to govern humanity. If the atheists won the war, they were going to put the Trust in charge of Earth. And the idea is that at some point, the Trust was going to pass the baton and was going to give humanity the ability to govern itself instead of the Trust being in charge. And Tamerlane questions whether the Trust will ever allow humanity to rule itself, or whether it will remain the digital dictator forever. It's like all these, like, coups and dictatorships that happen in a lot of countries in the real world, where, like, the dictator says, yeah, we're just a like a transitional government council. It's like, when the military, like, overthrows the government and makes themselves the government. That's happened, like, to a lot of countries recently, actually. In like West Africa, for example, there's been a lot of countries that have had military coups and dictatorships. And so often what they say is like, yeah, we are the temporary transitional government, and we are going to hold democratic elections as soon as it's possible to do so. But, we just need to ensure security first. We just need to make sure everything's stable, and then we're going to transition into democratic elections as soon as possible. And so often they don't transition into democracy. They just continually keep the dictatorship, and that is what Tamerlane is accusing the Trust AI of. It's saying, you're never going to let us choose our leaders for ourselves. You're always going to stay the dictator. This whole idea of like passing the baton reminds me of like the mantle in Halo. Halo, like the video games, have like some surprisingly interesting lore, and I like in Halo there's the mantle of responsibility, which is like there is always like a species in the galaxy who are advanced and who are trusted with the responsibility of looking after and overseeing other forms of life, and like the Forerunners didn't give it to the Covenant, they gave it to the humans or something like that. But this idea of like, to have this divine right to rule the universe, which is like the divine right of kings in like medieval times and stuff. The idea of governance being divinely inspired. Anyway, so Mother beats up Tamerlane, and Father is investigating this like android corpse that he uncovered. And again, like we did see in a trailer that we see Father like pouring white milk stuff onto the android, which I think is like giving it skin and like rejuvenating it. So I'm really looking forward to this dead android talking, hopefully one day. Oh, and also Father sees that there are berries growing on the corpse, which like, I don't know what that's about. This planet is full of bones. And I think there's a lot of this idea of like life coming from death. And like sacrifice and blood being related to like the birth of the serpent. This story is all about like Genesis, birth, life, beginnings, endings, deaths, the interconnection of life and death, like an Ouroboros, a snake biting its own tail. So like the interconnection of death and life is, I think, part of what these berries represent. And yeah, so Father's happy. He says that, knowing that Tamerlane was brutally punished makes his caregiving protocols feel satisfied. So Father likes seeing harsh punishment for the person who threatened his children. And now Marcus and Decima have this like cute date. They're like jumping around the rocks above the acid sea. Like they're just like having a fun time. Just like, yay! Bouncy, bouncy, woo, let's hang out. But like they're jumping around and over the crashing waves of an acid sea. This is such an incredibly stupid thing to do. Why are they playing like children around the deadly acid sea? The only way you can be this dumb is to be in love, I think. I think this is a testament to the intimacy and the relationship that's growing between Marcus and Decima. Only people who are in love would be so stupid as to be jumping around deadly acid rocks. And then, yeah, like Decima suddenly sort of snaps out of it and she's like, oh, we are surrounded by acid water. We're stranded. We're fucked. And Marcus says, yeah, a couple of days we'll be fine. But it's just a joke. And apparently the tide will actually like go away much more quickly. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But they're choosing this moment of being surrounded by an acid sea as just a moment of bonding between Decima and Marcus. A real family. So cute. I imagine that this can only end badly, this relationship between Marcus and Decima. Because, like, look at this. Like he's being close to her, but he says, don't be afraid of letting go. And I think what Marcus wants is for Decima to let go of Rill, her, like, surrogate daughter android. And I think Marcus is being manipulative, basically. Because Marcus is not just, like, enjoying this newfound intimacy. He's also calculatedly trying to build a community around himself, with himself in charge. So I think this relationship is not a pure and good relationship. Marcus is a cult leader. Like he's charming, but he's like manipulative. Like we were talking about purposeful smiles before, and I think Marcus's smiles are purposeful. He's trying to like win the loyalty of people. Yeah. We get another shot with the family. Father mentions synthetic botanicals, which is definitely some kind of special devil's lettuce that they're talking about there, I think. And Mother hides the fact that she was playing Punisher, just as Mother hid the fact that she was that she birthed a serpent. So Mother is keeping all sorts of secrets, which is setting up the scene for, revelation and betrayal soon. Tamerlane comes and apologizes for his hate crime earlier, which was ordered by the Trust. It's very humiliating. Like it like makes these adults into children, like when a parent tells the kid to apologize to the other kid. Mum said I had to say sorry. It's not sincere when you apologize because robot dad told you to. Like it's infantilizing to be forced to do this, I think, when it's not sincere. So yeah, this doesn't work too well. Then we... Yeah, and so the point is, like, we see Tamerlane, like, this is why Tamerlane would feel resentful against the Trust. Like, he's forced to sort of humble himself when it goes against his beliefs. He does hate the Mithraics, he hates the Trust, and yet he has to pretend otherwise. And so this is why Tamerlane tries to, escape this episode. Whereas Father's like, yeah, this is great. I love it. I love Father's like Father's like naivety and optimism and positivity is normally a totally like charming, wholesome thing. Whereas in this particular case, like Father is just beaming and super happy about Tamerlane being like angry and humiliated. Like this is quite like a dark, nasty moment. But Father's like, yeah, this is great. And I think that's great because it sort of gives Father almost a kind of creepiness, Yeah, so I like what they're doing with Father's character. He is gradually becoming a bit more complicated. And Campion comes and tells Mother and Father about the prophetical box that Paul was trying to keep hidden. So that's going to create some conflict between Paul and Campion. And Campion also says that he has this egg, and Mother tells him to take the egg back to the tree. Today was incredible, Decima says. I haven't felt this good since ages. They definitely just boned. Like, it's not on scene, but like they definitely just boned. Probably while surrounded by the moat of acid water on the rock earlier, actually. That's probably where they boned. Good idea for a Valentine's date, guys. Take your significant other to a rock surrounded by acid. It always leads to a great time. So in this moment of like post-coital bliss, Marcus immediately starts manipulating Decima and says, this robot Vril, you should get rid of the robot because that robot is not your real daughter. Her soul is not in that machine. You should get rid of her. So Marcus really is such a slimy dude. Like he's becoming close to this woman, but he's also trying to manipulate this woman into giving up her android daughter, basically just because Marcus doesn't trust androids. But he maybe should, because like we see shortly that Vril is actually quite useful. Vril like carries Tamerlane up a rope, as we're about to see. So I think he's alienating and complicating this relationship when he really shouldn't be, even like strategically. And he finds these cards. Marcus finds these cards, which are like related to like the prophetic, mystical significance of things. And we saw some of these cards in season 1. The masked human person, the native person on this planet, gave these cards to Mother, and these cards revealed the history of this planet, and they revealed like the ancient cult that was birthing snakes. And so, these cards were a way that we were warned against the dangers of Sol. But then in episode 9, the voice of the god Sol told Paul to destroy these cards. So Sol doesn't want people to know what's on these cards, because these cards contain like digital information about the past that people can access through visions. So I'm interested to see what these cards will reveal to Marcus and Decima, because it might not be positive. It might not be good about Sol. These cards are interesting. I suppose they are records left behind by like the human civilization that once existed on this planet, and about their war with the ancient snakes or whatever it is that happened. And yet the cards also have information about the prophecy, the tree of knowledge, and the orphan boy and stuff. So I'm curious to see what these cards reveal. Will they be helping the plan of the evil snake god, or will they be hindering it? Be interesting. And Marcus reckons that this knife, this like scalpel that he took from Mother, maybe it is the sword of Sol. So the Sword of Sol in the prophecy was mentioned just last episode, and already we've got multiple possibilities about what is this prophesied sword. Is it the serpent? Is it that needle? What could it be? Are we going to have a singular answer to the prophecy, or are we just going to have multiple ambiguous interpretations? Be interesting to find out. So Tamerlane tries to escape, and so Marcus and Decima and Vril come and like welcome him into their group. So Marcus is already like succeeding. Like Marcus is trying to, add to his flock. He's trying to like add to his group of people who follow him. And, he speaks conciliatory, and he, convinces Tamerlane to join his side. And so we see how manipulative and smart Marcus can be. "Come with us if you want to live," he says, quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. So they run into the cave, and they climb up this thing, and since Tamerlane is wounded, he gets carried by Vril, the android child. So that's what I'm saying, like, these androids are, like, hella useful. I don't know if it's smart for Marcus to be alienating the android. She's pretty handy. Seeing this strength from her, I wonder if we're going to see more of that from Vril. I wonder what her role is going to be. Vril doesn't talk very much. She doesn't have, like, a huge amount of personality so far. But we'll see how that develops. I think it might be a mistake for Marcus to make Vril his enemy. So the atheists try and hunt down Tamerlane, but they get melted by the acid water, and Marcus takes Tamerlane up to the church and says, "This is your new home, you're going to hang out with me, and by the way, I'm in charge and I'm the voice of God." Campion comes to put the egg back in the tree, but the egg breaks, and then, sneaky snek, the snake comes, the serpent that was birthed from Mother last season, and it seems intelligent, it sees Campion, but it doesn't attack him. It doesn't kill him. It just sort of sniffs him out, and then, like Mother saves Campion. She like screeches at it, and the serpent runs away. But I think it's interesting, this like connection between the serpent and Campion, because like it's an interesting relationship between like Campion and Paul, right? Like Campion and Paul are two of the sort of leading contenders for the messiah of this world. Like some people think that Paul fulfills the prophecy. Some people think that Campion fulfills the prophecy, and Campion is the one who believes in Sol, and he is faithful, and he is more religious, and he has heard the voice. Whereas Campion, the voice told Campion to kill himself, and the god here seems to be against Campion. So Campion is more like the sinful one, right? And so I think it's interesting that the sinful one is connected to the snake, because of course the snake on the tree of knowledge in the Bible is the one who convinces humanity to embrace original sin, and so I wonder if that's the role that Campion is going to play. Like, is Campion going to be the one who commits original sin by killing Paul, for example? Maybe the snake will convince Paul to kill Campion. That could be a cool founding sin in this world, So, and the serpent is also made more sympathetic in this episode, because Mother comes and she like sees the serpent. And it looks as though it's threatening Campion, but she like scares it away, and the serpent makes this lovely noise as it flies off into the distance, and the creators described it as like a mix between Mother's necromancer shriek and like a scared sound, like the serpent seems kind of afraid. And I love the way it moves as well. It's very serpentine. So yeah, I like the design of the serpent. And meanwhile, there's a bunch of these like atheist folks digging around in the... What are they even doing? They're like searching for something? I don't even know what those guys are doing there. But the snake, after it like flies off, it comes to these atheists who are working, and then it pulls this house full of atheists into the acid water, and they just fucking melt alive. There's like 9 people in that thing, and they just melt in the acid because the serpent like pulled them in there. So it's this really scary, brutal moment. But ironically, Father and Hunter and Holly were saved. The reason why they didn't die, the reason why they weren't inside that building when it burned up, was because the atheist people didn't let them in. Like, get in, wait for me. But the atheists closed the door and shut them out to prevent these guys from getting in. But because they were refused entry, that's why they're not inside the building when it burns up. So there's like an irony here, you know? Because the atheists hated those Mithraic kids, that's why the Mithraic kids survived. But the other really cool moment is that, you know, when Mother sees this serpent, you know, she sees this serpent as her enemy because, you know, this serpent seemed to be threatening her child Campion. Get back, you bitch, she says, like in like Ripley in Aliens 2. She comes to protect her child. But there's a connection between Mother and the serpent. Like, this is the thing that she birthed. And so, like, after she scares it off, she notices there's milk coming out of her body. Like, these, like, 6 nipples on her body, like a wolf, like the wolf that raised Romulus and Remus. And so, like, despite Mother, like, wanting to reject her serpent child, there is a, like, biological, technological connection between them that she can't deny. There is, like, a genetic connection between them. And that's something that this show constantly explores. Like, it's about, like, you know, the genetic connections between us, like the natural relationships between us, but also the surrogate and, like, adoptive relationships. Like, Sue is the adoptive parent of Paul, and you know, Mother and Father are, like, the adoptive parents of her human children. But, like, Mother is the biological parent of this snake, and so this idea of, like, you know, the differences between a biological or a surrogate parental relationship is so much of what this show is all about. So yeah, the snake comes and it sort of kills all these people. Although you got to wonder, like, did the snake deliberately knock this building into the acid, or was it just an accident? Like, they talk about this serpent being like a baby, you know? Is this serpent something evil, or is it just a confused baby that doesn't know its strength, you know? Having a snake baby is complicated. So the atheists are like, yeah, there's a snake on the loose. We've got to deal with this. We're going to have to, like, kill this serpent, I suppose. And Marcus has a smoko with Tamerlane, and this is how they connect and they build a relationship and a rapport, is by having a ciggy, as people have since time immemorial. And yeah, they used to have, yeah, it's an atheist cigarette because they both were in the wars as atheists, so they connect over that. And Tamerlane, like, he talks about how he doesn't know, you know, he was drafted when he was 10 or 11 and he doesn't know his birthday. So, like, we really get the sense that, like, these guys have both suffered in similar ways. Like, they both were child soldiers in, like, a horrific, traumatic war that destroyed their homeworld. I think it sort of helps us understand why Marcus and Tamerlane do these drastic, violent things. It's because they have suffered and they've been through wars, and, you know, they got nothing to lose and they're willing to fight for what they need. And so, you know, I think this is why they are so dangerous. It's because of these horrible upbringings that they've had, you know. They take some drugs. Sue gives some, like, some drugs to the atheist people, and she mentions that they can protect you against burrow fleas and moon headaches. What on earth does that mean? Are burrow fleas, like, creatures that are native to Kepler-22b? Do they even know about how these native creatures work? What the fuck is a burrow flea? And a moon headache? Is that like a PMS thing? What is a moon headache? I don't know. I enjoy this techno babble though. I think it's quite fun. And I wonder if Sue's, like, medical knowledge is going to become relevant, you know? Like, there's a lot of weird biological reproductive things going on in this series. I wonder if Sue's medical knowledge might be even more useful in the future. And, you know, like, this guy Carver sort of highlights how interesting Sue's position is because, you know, Sue was an atheist soldier, and then she took on the identity of a Mithraic and impersonated the Mithraic, but now she's back with the atheists and she can be an atheist again. And so she sort of tells Carver that, like, oh yeah, like it feels good to be back among atheists, but you can sort of tell that she has mixed feelings, because Sue like almost does have a bit of a sense of the divine, you know. She does feel like Paul was almost like a gift from God for her. Her actress said in an interview. And so I don't know if, you know, Sue really is like on board with the atheists fully, you know, and, you know, she has a connection to some of the Mithraic kids and so, you know, like, but I think Sue feels pressured to sort of join one side or the other. And that's the, you know, unfortunate thing about tribalism and factionalism, is that sometimes you got to hide your true feelings to fit in. And I think that's what Sue is doing here. And yeah, Sue asks about what Carver's backstory is, and he sort of deflects. But I am curious to know what Carver's background is. Be interesting to know more about him. I go where the trust goes, been with it since it was created. And so again, like, we know that the trust, the AI in charge of the atheists, was created by Campion Sturgis, this guy. So if this guy Carver was with the trust since it was created, I imagine Carver must have some history with Campion Sturgis. So I wonder what that relationship was, and I wonder if we're going to get more flashbacks to learn more about Campion Sturgis. Because Campion Sturgis is quite an interesting and mysterious figure. So he's sort of the creator god. He's like the human version of the creator god who created Mother and had this plan to birth these children. The genesis on Kepler 22b was instigated by Campion Sturgis. So I hope we get to find out more. So yeah, and, you know, Sue questions Carver, like, why is Carver so faithful to the trust? What does Carver know? What has Carver experienced that has led him to have this trust and this faith in the trust? And Carver says that, you know, like, it seems like Carver was an atheist soldier like the rest of them, and, you know, he saw human fallibility, because even the smartest human tacticians made mistakes. Whereas the trust does not have human flaws. The trust isn't trying to save its own ass. It has no sense of self. It doesn't make mistakes. Which, of course, can't possibly be true. Like, the trust is going to fuck up, surely. The trust is going to make mistakes. And I hope that Season 2 is about the liberation of humanity from the control of a computer. So they go on a snake hunt. Campion's got a connection with animals, because yeah, like, Campion was a vegetarian last season, wasn't he? Because, like, they started eating the weird creatures that exist on 22B. These fellas, these ugly dudes. That's a pre-production thing, but they started eating some of these dudes, and Campion refused to eat the creature meat, which, as it turns out, was probably a good decision, because the creatures are actually devolved human beings. But I like how Campion's continuing his sort of his moral vegetarianism is kind of interesting. They're really highlighting Campion developing his own morals and opinions. Is pretty cool. They speculate on whether the serpent is working for the god here. Because, you know, the god seems to want to make snakes. The god sort of engineered the birth of the snake and manipulated Mother into birthing the snake last season, so it makes sense that the serpent will be, like, working for the god, perhaps. And then we discover that the atheists have this strategy for catching the snake. They've got a bait squad. Father's job is to get this squad of Mithraic prisoners. These are all the characters from Season 1. This is Lucius and these other Mithraic people, the survivors of the Mithraic arc last season. And they are being used as human bait. Their strategy, Carver's strategy to kill the serpent, is to feed one of these Mithraics, like, use these Mithraics as bait so that they get swallowed, and then to detonate their bomb pack while they are inside the serpent to destroy the serpent. Because the serpent is very tough. It's this biotech tough creature. It's resistant to acid. You can't just shoot it down. So they're trying to blow it up from the inside with these Mithraics. And, you know, Carver is, you know, this is like Carver's plan, but I suppose Carver got that plan from the Trust, right? Because Carver just does what the Trust said. So you know, you got to question if the Trust, you know, utilitarian, benevolent AI is feeding people to this snake. Not a very nice AI, is it? I don't know if I want to side with the computer that feeds people to snakes and uses human bait. I don't know what these hats are about. What are these hats about? Are they to keep off the sun, or is that some kind of technology that is connected to like the bomb suits or something? I don't know. It looks very silly, but it's fun. I want to know more about this kid. This kid with the eye patch has been around since season 1, but I don't think he has any lines yet. But anyway, so father seems to start to have some mixed feelings about using people as bait. They call it the bait squad. What is this? Some kind of bait squad? So yeah, off they go. And mother does something interesting. So since she discovered that like she was lactating when she saw her serpent baby, she has this biological connection to the serpent. But she wants to kill the serpent to protect her human children. So mother asks Sue to seal up her nipples, her robot nipples. God, you have to say some weird sentences in describing this show. But the android asks Sue to seal up her robot nipples because she's having like a female vasectomy. She's like sealing up her tubes because she doesn't want to have any more babies. She just wants to protect her existing human babies. So Sue seals it up for her. And mother says, "Oh, I've been having these weird things called feelings. I have possessed human emotions, and do you have any strategies to deal with feelings?" And Sue was just like, "Yeah, I just like push the feelings down and go on." So, you know, mother is naively trying to learn how to deal with having emotions, which is fun. Yeah, and this whole idea of sealing up the nipples is so weird. I don't really understand how the milk like came through her suit. Like, does her suit have little holes in it for the nipples? I guess so. She's an android, so who knows how she works. Yeah, so then mother goes and grabs a harpoon and goes after the snake. Marcus, yeah, it's a big gun too. It's like it reminds me of like the Gauss rifle in Fallout 3. But she picks up the gun and she heads off to perform a 4th trimester snake abortion. Welcome to Raised by Wolves Season 2. So Marcus and his growing flock go to attack this atheist tank. He hijacked an atheist bomber before. Now he's going to hijack an atheist tank. And of course, since Marcus was an atheist soldier, he knows how this stuff works. And I like this moment where, like, you know, Decima says, "Oh, Marcus, you shouldn't go and attack the tank because the tank will irradiate you. It's very dangerous." And Tamerlane says, "Oh, I guess I can do it. I guess I can go risk my life and attack the tank." And Marcus says, "Yeah, it's up to you. You make your own choices. So you should risk your life so that I don't have to." You know, like Marcus keeps saying this, you make your own choices. He's like trying to offer people freedom. And yet he's convincing the other people to be the people who risk their life, you know, which is what any good prophet has to do, I suppose. So Tamerlane is really balls to the wall, taking risks, fighting for the cause. He's someone who desperately needed a leader, you know. He had a lot of resentment against the Trust and against the Mithraic, and he craves like having someone tell him what to do for the cause. So I guess this is what he's always wanted. So he goes under and like they break the tank, and then they have a shootout with the atheist soldiers inside. I kind of dislike the choreography of this particular fight. Like, nothing very interesting happens in this fight. Like, Marcus just approaches with a gun and people peek out and he just shoots them before they shoot him. It's like, I kind of wish Marcus did something kind of clever or smart. Like, what if he climbed like onto the tank itself and he like peeked around, or if he like, you know, hacked into the tank to make the tank do something different, or locked the people in or something. I don't know. I just found this particular gunfight to be kind of boring, the way that he just, you know, domed all these people. Anyway, but they take over the tank, and I like this moment of like he tries to talk this guy into joining his side, but then he attacks, so Marcus is forced to kill him. But you know, I like this change in strategy from Marcus, trying to convert people instead of killing them. And he tries to save this atheist soldier and tries to convert him on his deathbed. But is unable to convert him and unable to save him. Maybe if Sue was there, since Sue is a medic, she would have been able to help, huh? Then they investigate the snake. They emphasize that the snake is not organic. It's like a biotechnological thing. Last season, the creator talked about how the snake was sort of like 3D printed inside of Mother. You know, this is not a, this is almost an android. It's a necro serpent, they call it. This thing's going to be very difficult to kill. And yeah, Marcus says maybe the snake is the sword of soul. Vril starts to act interestingly. She says that she's like stressed out and she needs a pet, which is funny because Vril is like Decima's pet, you know? Like Vril is Decima's Tamagotchi, and now Vril says she wants a Tamagotchi. She needs a dolly. She needs something to give her comfort. Which is interesting, you know? The pet needs a pet, the child needs a child, and that's how the cycle of life goes on, I suppose, even if you're an android. I'm increasingly curious about what role Vril is going to play. Like there's always something like inherently uncomfortable about a robot child, you know, because that's a child that will never grow up. Like Vril will be a child forever, which is weird, you know. It reminds me of that film AI, Artificial Intelligence. That is a really weird movie, but I always loved that movie because it sort of explores some of these same ideas about, like, you know, what does it mean to be a child forever? And it's also got some amazing visuals. AI, Artificial Intelligence, I really like that movie. So Campion goes and Vril finds a little bird. I think the CGI is quite bad in this scene. Like the way that they have the bird behind Vril's fingers, so it's not as obvious that it's CGI and she's not actually touching it. Like look at the, you know, the contact between the fingers and the bird. Like it looks like she's touching the bird, but then the bird is not touching, and like the CGI just looks wrong to me here, which is a shame. But that's the way it is. But I do like that we're seeing more of the nature on Kepler 22b. It's got like a skinless, featherless head, like a vulture or something. It's cool to see more of the creatures. And then an atheist tank just starts blasting at Vril, which is you know, disturbing. It's really a shoot first, ask questions later sort of a society. Like, do they really need to destroy this android? Like, it's just a child. But at the same time, this is a super strong child. Like we saw her carrying Tamerlane with robot strength. So maybe a child robot is deceptive because it looks harmless, but it's actually very powerful. So maybe the atheists are justified in shooting at Vril here. It's quite a bad shot. It's using some real stormtrooper aim. Like it does manage to like sort of clip her leg, but I think it's a bit silly how inaccurate this tank is. Shouldn't it have an aimbot? And we see another hole here. We see another like pit in the landscape. I think it's really cool the way these little serpent holes are riddling the environment. I think that does hint at like the serpentine past of this planet. And yeah, Vril is injured, so she comes and asks for help from Campion and Paul. And Paul's like, I don't care about androids. Whereas Campion is like, I want to help Vril, the android. So maybe this alliance will matter in the future. And I like Campion has sympathy for everyone. Like Campion in season 1, Campion talked about how he believes that trees have souls, you know, and he wants to respect and protect trees. So Campion has a very large sense of compassion for all living things and even non-living things. He doesn't want to eat creatures. He doesn't want to kill creatures or trees or robots. He sees life and souls in everything, which is very lovely. But I mean, when you have love and respect for everything, it means it's difficult to make tough decisions, you know? Humans have got to eat, you know? You got to eat plants, or at least. So I wonder if Campion's very sort of like rosy, hippy-dippy morality is going to be challenged by the harsh conditions of the reality that he's living in. And Mother goes snake hunting with a giant like fucking Gauss harpoon or whatever the fuck that is. And she finds some skin, a like discarded molted snake skin from her necro serpent snake baby. And it's this really sort of tender moment where she touches the skin of her child like it's a child's blanket or something. And it's this very sort of sad, intimate moment, but then Mother decides to burn it with her fire breath. She says, "You deserve only death." and she burns her serpent child's skin. I really enjoy like the tone of Mother's delivery here. Like she says it in a very sort of matter of fact way. Like look at her expression. You know, she sort of says, "You deserve only death." And it's this sort of like matter of fact, but it's also kind of sad, and it's also kind of like robotic, and it's also kind of human. I really enjoy Amanda Collins' performance here. And it's this sort of creepy robotic thing, you know. It's this is how she was programmed to be. She was programmed to be like this upbeat, nurturing mother. I mean, she was built as a destructive necromancer superweapon, but then she was reprogrammed to be a nurturing, caring mother. But now she's found herself in this extremely complicated, dangerous political fight for survival. And so she's got so many competing urges and programming and her nature and her nurture and all this stuff going on within her, and her limited android programming is struggling to deal with all of these complex circumstances that she finds herself in. And I think that the performance does a good job of communicating that very complicated reality that Mother is living in. So she burns the skin of her serpent child and walks off to hunt and kill her baby, which is a lovely way to end Raised by Wolves Season 2, Episode 2. So, like, some of the obvious questions in Raised by Wolves Season 2 is, like, you know, will Mother be able to kill her child? I suspect not. I suspect that the serpent will have an ongoing role. I do like the idea that the serpent might be the sword of soul in the prophecy. Maybe the serpent will play an important role in, like, empowering Paul or empowering Campion to, you know, win whatever conflict occurs between, like, you know, the atheists and the Mithraics and Marcus and Carver and I'm really curious to see what happens with the trust and the AI versus AI battle between the god AI of the trust and the god AI of the planet core, which I suspect is the force behind the voice that's trying to birth the serpents. It's one AI that seems to be on the side of the serpents versus the other AI that seems to be on the side of humanity. But neither of those AIs can really be trusted, I think. Let's also have a glance at the trailer for the upcoming episodes. So we see that, you know, both Mother and Father are hunting the serpent, and we see Marcus and we see this like gladiatorial battle between this like terrifying monstrous Thunderdome death robot and Father. For some reason Father has to fight this monstrous android in gladiatorial combat, and all the atheists are cheering it on. Like, why is this like Father's punishment for like something that he does against the atheist collective? Like, why are the atheists pitting Father against the android? I suppose Father will win this battle, I suppose. And I guess this is a different android to the android that Father is reconstructing. I think this is different. Hopefully Father doesn't like create, like rejuvenate and resurrect that dead android only for it to attack him in the Thunderdome. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious as to why Father is put into this situation. But it looks like a fun Thunderdome battle. What is this structure? Is that the tree, maybe? Is that like the trunk of the Tree of Knowledge? Or is that like snow? It looks like Mother's in like a different climate at some point. Climbing up this mountain. What's at the top of the mountain? Yeah, that looks like snow, or like salt, or cocaine. Maybe Mother is climbing a mountain of cocaine to fight a serpent. That would be in keeping with the trippy themes of this show. So she climbs up, and it looks like she's facing the serpent at the peak of this mountain. That is a cool shot. That is a very cool shot. And I don't expect Mother will kill the serpent. But I wonder what will result from this, you know? Like, will Mother be convinced to join the side of her serpent baby, or will she just antagonize it further, or like what will she learn? Will she have some visions about the future and past? Because there were lots of visions in season 1. Will there be a voice? Will the god of this planet intervene in this confrontation? Because the voice of the soul god is unable to penetrate the electromagnetic field of the tropical zone, but it looks like Mother is in a different place, in a different climate now. So maybe Mother is now outside of the tropical zone, and maybe the voice will be able to speak to her again. All sorts of possibilities. And then there's like the after show, and what do we learn from the after show? Yeah, so Guzikowski explains like the whole punishment thing, and the costumer talks about like the design. It's very sort of Kylo Ren, this mask, isn't it? And we talk about the relationship, and we talk about like Decima, and like Decima turned to religion because of the death of her daughter, apparently. I wonder if her human daughter's name was Vril. Like, I wonder if the android Vril is just an exact copy of the human Vril with the same name and everything. And yeah, the EP says that this is about Decima trying to absolve her guilt for the death of her daughter. So I wonder if the death of her human daughter was somehow her fault, and that's why she feels guilt. And apparently Decima is falling in love with, you know, the aura of power that Marcus has more than the actual person himself. So this is not, you know, I don't expect this relationship to end well, personally. And Guzikowski talks about how, yeah, it is the radioactive eyes inside Marcus that gives him this weird physical effect. Anyone near him is feeling a weird state of euphoria because of the necromancer eyeballs Marcus swallowed with the weird dark photon energy in his veins. So that's weird. And it again highlights, you know, Marcus being a false prophet. It has nothing to do with God, Guzikowski says. It's very much to do with science. And I found this scene to be so dark. I feel like the darkness is probably there to like mask like the CGI not being that good. It reminds me of goddamn Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 3. I remember the Long Night came out, and it was so dark that no one could see what was going on. Like, in Game of Thrones, The Long Night, Season 8, Episode 3, there was, like, a dragon fight between, like, Drogon and zombie Viserion, but you couldn't see anything that was happening because it was so dark. And then the director was like, oh, you should just watch it on a expensive HDR 4K TV so you can see what's happening. And it's like, people don't have that fancy hardware all the time, man. So it's so fucking silly. I think in this case, they're just trying to hide the CGI not being that good. But yeah, Campion's actor talks about the connection between the serpent and Campion. And Campion sees the goodness in the serpent, where everyone else sees the monstrousness. And so that connects to, you know, Campion's compassion for all things. So maybe Campion will save the serpent, you know? Maybe Campion will convince everyone that the serpent is not evil. Maybe there will be more serpents in this story. Like it seems to me that the AI god wants to bring back the serpents, like lots more serpents. Maybe Campion will be like an interlocutor between the serpents and the humans. Maybe Campion will advocate for the serpents to the humans. That would be cool. Like, maybe he will see the goodness in the serpent side, and he will become the serpent king instead of the human king. Maybe Campion will side with the serpents and with the planet, whereas Paul will side with the humans and the Mithraic. I don't know. And yeah, we speak about the nature of the serpent and how Mother wants to protect it. And Mother won't be able to kill her serpent that easily. It's a survival mission, Father says. So this hunt is not going to go very well. I like Holly is acting her heart out here. Look at Holly go. Wow. Imagine being an actor, man. Imagine having to like pretend to be freaked out by something that isn't actually there. Look at her go. My God. Being an actor. Incredible. And yeah, they actually had an actual physical container that they actually physically pulled into the ocean. So that's kind of cool. I expect that the ocean wasn't actually acid, but yeah, that's pretty neat. But yeah, that was the start of Raised by Wolves Season 2. Thanks for watching this live stream. I noticed that they also put out another trailer on the HBO Asia Twitter that had a few shots that we haven't seen before, including... this one, it looks like Paul has a bit of a skin condition going on there. It looks a lot like earlier in season 2, episode 1, one of the atheists put his hands inside Mother, and then he got this like crazy like tumors and growth on his skin, and it looks like Paul has the same thing here. So I wonder what's happening to Paul. Like, what is this weird like android disease that's afflicting him? But then we also see this shot of, it looks like a bunch of Mithraics or androids who appear to be lowering a big pentagonal object into a pit. They're not pulling it out of the pit, they're lowering it into the pit. So I'm very curious about what's going on there. There were those like pentagonal objects in season 1, and Guzikowski said that there are a bunch of them. What do they call them? But there were these big pentagonal temples. They called them temples. And apparently there are 5 of these, because it's a pentagonal prophecy. So I wonder if like this object is another one of those 5 temples that they've uncovered. Don't know why they're lowering it into a pit though. That's mysterious. And yeah, and the climax, I suppose, will be the tree of knowledge growing. Someone's jumping off a cliff. Is that Vril? Is that Vril jumping off a cliff? Maybe. Oh, and running away from Decima. I wonder why. And it looks like she might be jumping into the water. I wonder if, as an android, Vril might be able to survive the acid water. Maybe that's what's going on there. So yeah, anything to talk about in the live chat before we end the live stream? Thank you so much for joining in, everybody. I think we will probably do similar live stream discussions like this after the future episodes of Raised by Wolves Season 2. So I'll see y'all here next week, I reckon. Cool in the live chat says that Paul just has grayscale. Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's probably just some grayscale. All you need to do is go to the Citadel, and Sam Tarley will just give you some magic juice, and you'll be fine. So don't even worry about it. We're going to go and hang out with Sam Tarley. Helsius in the live chat says, tough voyaging. It would be cool to talk about some of George R. R. Martin's kooky 80s sci-fi stories that he wrote in his Thousand Worlds series. He does have some cool, weird stories. It would be fun to talk about those. Hellbird says that Mother is climbing a mountain of cocaine, at the peak of which sits Ridley Scott, trying to explain what the hell is going on in this show. Yeah, apparently Ridley Scott was responsible for the design of the Punisher mask in this episode. They said Ridley Scott designed this thing. Ridley had huge input. But I think that the true mastermind of this series is this guy, Aaron Guzikowski. He's the show creator and writer. And he's the guy who's in all the interviews explaining what all the lore is and what's going on. But yeah, it's an interesting collaboration. It's funny seeing how, like, in all of HBO's advertising for this series, it's always from the mind of Ridley Scott, created by Ridley Scott, because he's a famous, well-known person. And it doesn't mention Aaron Guzikowski in the advertising, even though he's the person who came up with the show, as far as I can tell. Ridley Scott is a contributor, but Guzikowski is the main creator, is my impression. And I can't help but wonder how Aaron Guzikowski feels about all the advertising crediting Ridley Scott with it. But that's show business, I suppose. They use the big names to advertise the creations of the people with smaller names. Ms. T in the live chat says, could a third type of religion be created? People who want to think for themselves and don't agree with either group. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's how the atheists started, right? I mean, like, you know, in the backstory of this world, like, the idea is that the Mithraics, they were empowered by the creation of the necromancers and the discovery of dark photon energy in their holy texts. And so the necromancers and the Mithraics started taking over the world and forcibly converting everybody. And the atheists weren't necessarily atheists. Like, the atheists weren't necessarily, like, people who had an ideology of not believing in God. The atheists were just what the Mithraics called anyone who resisted them, is what Guzikowski has said or implied in interviews. So it's not like the atheists or atheism, like, even is an ideology, or at least originally. It just sort of became one because they were forced to band together and they were forced to form their own ideology to unite against the Mithraics. So, you know, I think the atheists of this world, that it wasn't meant to be an ideology, it just sort of became one. And I think that's what happens, you know? Like, everyone says, oh, you know, we don't like being forced into a political ideology, so we'll start our own ideology with blackjack and hookers, and it'll be peace and love, and people will be able to think for themselves. But inevitably, power structures form, and ideologies, and fanaticism, and prejudice happens wherever there is power. And that's something that Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, was obsessed with. Like, the original trilogy of Dune books is all about how, you know, whenever you have a messianic leader, whenever you have a hero, even if that person has good intentions, the power structure that forms around that person is almost always corrupted, and it suffers the same kinds of greed and cruelty and exploitation that humans always seem to fall into. So, you know, I think Raised by Wolves is certainly about that. Ms. T also says, do you think Mother will get her eyes back eventually? New ones, or possibly the old ones? Yeah, well, her old eyes are currently in the belly of Marcus. So it would be pretty metal if Mother just came and, like, pulled her eyes out of Marcus's living belly. Can you imagine that? Like, Marcus just punches into Marcus's belly, pulls her eyes out, and puts them back in her own eye sockets covered in Marcus's blood. That would be metal as fuck, holy moly. And yeah, I do think that she will get her eyes back at some point, because Mother needs her original eyes in order to fly, and in order to use her scream, and in order to use the full extent of her powers. And I think it's like a kind of a Chekhov's gun. I think that she probably will get her powers back at some point. And maybe she will use those powers to kill the serpent, maybe. Or maybe she will use her powers to kill Marcus. Like, I think Mother getting her powers back has to be a big climactic, destructive moment. So maybe she'll use it to kill the serpent or to kill Marcus. Discordant in the live chat says that Paul just needs some Radex. Which is that drug in Fallout. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here, guys. We've been talking for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Oh my god, about Raised by Wolves. So yeah, like and subscribe, and we will have another live stream after the next episode comes out in 1 week, I think. And I look forward to whatever crazy shit is going on in the next episode. Or episodes. I don't even know if they're releasing 2 episodes next week again, or just 1 episode. But that'll just bring us back to our rant again about release dates and schedules not being communicated very well by the platforms. Lion Gamer in the live chat says, will we see you in the gaming channel? Yeah, I do have a gaming channel, inexplicably. I'd like to play more Dark Souls. We're going to have to hurry up if we're going to beat every Dark Souls game before Elden Ring comes out. Or maybe some more Binding of Isaac. Yeah, we'll play some more. But yeah, cheers. We'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Thanks very much for the super chats. Shout out to Bill Miller. Thanks for the donation in the previous live stream. And see you all next time. Cheers.